The Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass. Where we make it happen, grab your seat, let's have a blast. At the Entrepreneurial Journey podcast.
If you love the entrepreneurial journey, how about subscribing and giving us a 5-star review? Wherever you get your podcasts, follow or subscribe and give us a positive review so more entrepreneurs out there don't need to feel alone. Thanks. Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. Today I have a doctor with me, Dr. Justin James Kennedy. Hi, Justin, how are you?
I'm happy to be here, Rebecca. Thanks for the invite.
Absolute pleasure. Now, you are the founder, am I right in saying that, of the Neuroplastician Institute? Is that right?
It's a little bit more than that.
Okay.
It's a little bit more, I don't know, complicated. We founded the Institute of Organisational Neuroscience, which hosts the Neuroplastician discipline, where someone can qualify to receive the Neuroplastician credential and use that designation. So hopefully that is a bit clearer.
Okay. Now, how did you get to this point, and what are you a doctor in?
Which question should I answer first?
Go for what are you a doctor in? Let's get.
Oh, no, I'm actually going to answer that at the end, because here is the short, true story of how I became a graduate of a doctoral program and a professor. So the story starts out with me being in a coma. And the story was I bought a motorbike and was riding around without a helmet, bought a helmet, and that afternoon got knocked off the motorbike into a subdural hemorrhage, which is a brain bleed, and into a coma. So the moral of the story is don't wear a helmet. Or maybe it's not a good moral of the story. But anyway, out of the coma, I couldn't do anything. I couldn't walk. I couldn't speak. I was emotionally up and down all over the place. But as I got back into my functional capacity, I realized that my brain wasn't really working. And I was interested in why not. So I started to research many years later into understanding what was the mechanics that weren't working. What was the chemical profile of these neurotransmitters that didn't get my brain to work? Before the coma, I was studying to be a psychologist, but obviously that stopped. And I then got more and more interested in the application of neuroscience. And to cut a long story short, it then became a relationship with a university in South Africa, which then became a university relationship in Switzerland, where I completed a doctorate in applied neuroscience within the environment of a business school. So it very much is an applied doctorate. It's not a neuroscientist degree. It is a Ph.D. in organizational neuroscience.
Wow.
And out of that, a lot of people started speaking to me and asking me, how do you do such a doctorate? Anyway, that then became a degree at the university where one can do a doctorate in organizational neuroscience now.
Wow.
And now, based on that, a lot of the PhD candidates have joined a fellowship in the Institute of Organisational Neuroscience, where we sit around, stroke our beards, say a lot of non-academic stuff. We're definitely an environment of non-academics. We are pracademics. We are professionals. We are practitioners. We are looking at the practical applications of the science. Therefore, it's applied.
Right.
So in saying that, we one day sitting around beard stroking as you do, and And somebody chimed in, we're actually not speaking about the application of neuroscience.
Right.
And everybody pursed their lips. And they said, we're actually speaking about neuroplasticity. And somebody else chimed in, yes, if you've read Norman Doidge's work, we're actually all neuroplasticians. I kid you not, at that moment, the bells went off. We got all creative. 5 months later, we've onboarded a scientific advisory board of some of the big names in applied neuroscience, like Richard Boyatzis and Paul Zak and Michael Platt. Anyway, there's lots of cool people on our advisory board now.
Right.
And we've defined a neuroplastician discipline. We've defined the competencies to be awarded the neuroplastician discipline based on your previous training and your current competencies as a practitioner. So we've just had our first year anniversary. So there's hundreds of people who have now completed the credential process to use the designation. It is so exciting, Rebecca. I can't tell you how much fun it is.
Okay, wow, there's so much in there. So I'm going to go back. The Norman Doidge book is How the Brain Changes Itself. One of the books I read 10 years ago, maybe longer, actually. And it was transformational because it was the first time I read in a scientific-based book that the brain can change itself. And that is the essence of neuroplasticity, isn't it?
It is, exactly. I mean, obviously, it can change for the good and the bad. You know, PTSD is an example of it not doing so well in its reformatting. But, you know, there's obviously positive ways through learning that you can build new healthy pathways to improve stuff, to build new habits, and to improve well-being and performance and memory and everything in between.
You can. And this is a revelation to a lot of people because not everybody is a geek like you and I, Justin, who get into this.
Oh, you say the nicest things.
I love geeks. And this is important for people in business to understand, isn't it? So give our audience, because our audience are mainly small to medium-sized businesses. So I'm hoping they're still hanging on in there after the science bit at the beginning. How does this impact them and their performance of themselves and their business?
So this is a very good question to ask a professor at the University of Chicago who is a professor of entrepreneurship and is on our advisory board, John Whitkin. So he is a very useful person to maybe be on your podcast because he is in our community. I'll introduce you. I mean, entrepreneurship is his thing. And he's also very much involved in understanding the neuroplasticity thereof. Okay. So that's his lane. However, we're on the podcast now, so I'm going to jump into the question.
Yeah, go for it.
Entrepreneurship, as you well know, is not a walk in the park.
No.
It's a walk through Hades. And it's filled with everybody gets a great idea and thinks, oh, I'm going to do something important. I'm going to change the world. And I'm an entrepreneur as well. So I speak from a first-hand experience. The branding that we've built and the image around what the neuroplastician discipline and also the community where people are having these conversations around neuroplasticity as entrepreneurs, as practitioners is very vibrant, as you know yourself being part of us. And the entrepreneur is basically under constant stress. I mean, their brains are wired to problem solve. You know, the dragons never sleep. Dragons don't have insomnia because they never sleep. And the dragons in our mind are so attractive because we know that when we get this, we'll get to that and we'll get to that. But as you well know, the dopamine addiction of being an entrepreneur doesn't stop when you reach your first million or reach your first milestone. you just get addicted and you just can't stop. And that has psychological and emotional fallout. It's very popular to get divorced if you're an entrepreneur. It's it's very popular to have heart attack or
Yeah.
to have like anxiety disorders because it's not a walk in the park.
Yeah.
And the work that you're doing is so important, and I really respect what you're doing, Rebecca, in helping these people not fall apart
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
also not keep falling apart when they start reaching those milestones. So understanding the neurobiology of entrepreneurship is so important. We're living like in a time, he says prophetically, like Nostradamus, we're living in a time where being an entrepreneur is really a good idea.
Yeah. We are.
We do have so much opportunity to be entrepreneurs, more than any time
Absolutely.
ever before. So there's so many tools and so many opportunities to build online or on the ground products
Mm.
that are so useful, so valuable. And the entrepreneur is obviously crucifying themselves on the road to Mecca if I mix up my religiosity.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Did you know at TriCrest we've built a kick-ass culture coach and consultant program? So if you're a business coach or consultant and you're looking for something new, add to your toolbox, or even escape the 9 to 5, join us at our next event. Links in the information on the podcast. See you there. So I had never connected dopamine with being an entrepreneur. I had never connected that. Can you just explain to everybody what dopamine does in the brain?
Okay, so dopamine is an excitatory and inhibitory neurotransmitter. Maybe I should just dumb down the science because it's not going to help anybody. Dopamine is what you get when you get addicted. So basically, the brain rewards you with a hit of dopamine every time you get something that you want.
Yeah.
So it feels good. It's the feel-good neurotransmitter. However, you can get addicted to that state. You get it through eating donuts or watching naughty bits online or, shooting up with your favorite drug, so you can get addicted through an avenue. And as we know, the neuroscience of entrepreneurship, you and me at least, know that it's very addictive to be so close to getting it right. And, you're just so close. And, it just becomes it's so addictive. And in the work that you're doing, I'm sure that you're noticing, I mean, that's probably why your business exists, Rebecca, is because you see an opportunity to support these entrepreneurs so that they don't burn out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the main thing, is that let's get your business sorted. Let's get it growing sustainably. Let's get a really good culture going in the business so that you don't need to burn out and drive yourself crazy. And much of what I work with entrepreneurs is sorting the structures out, and at the same time giving them loads of reassurance and confidence that they've got it and what they're experiencing isn't unusual or abnormal, and that for entrepreneurs, this is just what you go through. And we've talked privately. It's really interesting. My son has talked to me about people with different neurodiversity aspects to them. And I said to him, you literally have described every entrepreneur I've ever come across in my entire life.
How did he describe them? I'm so curious. Give us the profile.
Restless souls, a million ideas a minute, switch between lots of different things, can't sit still, we'll change subject, we'll go off on massive tangents. I'm like, that's every client I've ever had.
It's kind of like ADHD is a ticket into the entrepreneurial Disney park. So, having this barrage of epiphanies is kind of part of the project, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's not something, because people are, oh, I feel bad, I've been diagnosed. I'm like, you need to embrace this. This is you this is like your superpower. And interestingly,
Exactly.
most of the entrepreneurs I've worked with over the years have dropped out of school. That fits. And because school doesn't work for them, school doesn't work for about 2/3 of the population, it only works for about 1/3 of the population. And if you can get into a business that you can use these skills, off you go. I was coaching a lady yesterday. She said, I've just been diagnosed as dyslexic. I went, well, you're an entrepreneur. It doesn't surprise me. You problem solve all the time.
Yeah,
And
you have to find new routes to, you have to be an entrepreneur in how you write your name. So
yeah,
you need to find neuroplasticity pathways just because that's the only way you're going to flourish.
absolutely. Absolutely. So I think it's fabulous. Okay. So I love that you've got this group of people who are really into applying the science to entrepreneurship in the workplace and business and leadership. And you're a year old. Where do you want to take this business of yours, Justin?
It's such an interesting discussion. So where do I want to take it? It's kind of, well, wherever it goes.
Okay.
It started out as a cunning idea, my lord, after Baldrick said, let's
Yeah.
have a neuroplastician discipline.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of taken on a life of its own. So where I want to take it is kind of just following the emergence, just like coaching or NLP did. Let's see where it ends up. It's a
Yeah.
not-for-profit initiative that is self-funded. The members have said, let's put in a small membership fee so that, we have, capacity to grow. So I would like to see it at 1,000 members.
Right.
It'll probably be 500 this time next year. So we've got
Wow.
a few hundred in already. So,
Great.
following the spreadsheet, we'll probably see it at about 500 next year. And, this will grow based on people feeling that it's a credible discipline, but more importantly, that it's a fun place to hang out. It's a cool place to belong. You get to meet fun experts and you get to show up as one yourself and you get to be in a learning environment. So the learning about community is so interesting. And if we look at the social neuroscience of community building, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing.
Oh, okay.
And the social neuroscience of community says, first, get your issue with oxytocin off the table. Okay. So make it a place where people want to be. So hence the branding and hence the fun factor. Then it needs to be playful within the boundaries of science. So, having a doctorate helps because it shows that I'm serious about the science. So that builds the credibility just automatically. And then speaking into what makes it a playful place where you can belong. And a guy in California called James Bond, I kid you not.
He's called James Bond.
His name is James Bond, and he wrote a book called Brain Glue. And I said, I got to meet James Bond, the brain glue agent. And James is nice enough, and you can read his book Brain Glue. It's basically a marketing book rather than a neuroscience book.
Right.
But he said one thing really incredibly interesting to me. He said, if you want to, this is about a year ago, he said to me, if you want to make this discipline and this community blossom, you need to get the experts involved. I said, we're still starting out. How do you do that? And he said, there is the rub, my boy. Off you go. And
okay.
I said, thank you for nothing. But it's so interesting, Rebecca, how serious thought leaders have got behind this idea. We've got some really big names in applied neuroscience involved I don't know if you know who Paul Zak is, but he's
No.
very big in oxytocin. ZAK, look him up. He's really
Okay.
important in this environment. He's written a whole bunch of books and like 5 TED Talks, and he is nicer than you can imagine.
Oh,
But there's many other people. I'm not going to list names. It's not
okay.
necessary. But there are lots of people who are behind this.
Hmm.
So how it will go will depend on my entrepreneurial expertise. And I'm not a
Okay.
very good entrepreneur, Rebecca.
Okay.
I'm,
What?
I'm a failed entrepreneur, as most entrepreneurs are. You know,
Yeah.
first time at the wicket isn't the last. So,
No, you've got to
uh,
fail a few times. You've got to
well,
fall
you've got to
flat on your
enjoy your
face.
failures, exactly.
Yeah. You
But
got,
but but what's working right now is that we've got a team building this. It's not me trying
Hmm,
to do this alone, and that
good.
makes a huge difference.
Yeah, it
You know,
does.
having people that scrum down with you, people who scrum down with you at the wicket to hit a 6 runs.
Yeah.
So you can see I like to mix my metaphors unnecessarily. Um, so the idea in this community is kind of like a sided project,
Hmm.
which has become the main project. So
Yeah.
I'm very excited, as you can hear. I can't stop myself.
I know, I think it's amazing. And yeah, the number of times a side project becomes the main business is unbelievable. The original idea, again, I was listening to a podcast with one of the founders of PayPal, who was on Joe Rogan, and he said, we had this crazy idea back in 1999 about transferring money through thin air, and he said it was a complete disaster. And it just reassured me so much that one of the founders of PayPal had fallen flat on his face and done a business idea that was rubbish and executed badly and completely failed. It was like, yes, we've all done it. So you
Mm,
fail your way to success, don't you?
exactly. You keep on the path.
Yeah.
And
Okay. Last couple of questions, Justin. If you had a purpose or a dharma or a mission in life, what would it be? How would you describe it?
on the back of this project, it is to ring fence what it actually means to apply the science of
Okay.
behavior change.
Ooh, I like
And
that.
that comes back to neuroplasticity. If you're not getting change in the brain, you're not going to sustain it.
Yeah.
So, trying to, back in the day when coaching was something you did with a baseball cap and a whistle, is now
Yeah.
a bit different.
Yeah.
And we've got executive coaching and everything else. You know, back in the day, there were many different disciplines, and I would like this discipline to show its rigor and find
Mm.
this little corner in the universe. So I think
Yeah.
the neuroplastician is a subcategory of coaching. It's a
Yeah.
non-clinical practice.
Yeah.
So, coaching is probably the best place for it to land.
Yeah.
So, so I would like this to be on my gravestone. I told you I
Oh.
was sick, and
That's funny. If your
uh,
business had a personality or a character, either who would it be or how would you describe that personality?
that's such a lovely question. I don't know what movie it was. I think the picture comes to mind. It was a movie, it was an animated movie about this little girl who
Hmm.
had glasses on for whatever reason. I remember that. And she was scared of the boogeyman.
Hmm.
And it turned out the boogeyman was this big blue, friendly thing that lived under a bed. And it
Monsters
was
Inc.
Yes, there you go. Thank you for remembering the name.
All
And
right.
I see this discipline as this big, friendly behemoth that is
Wow.
so eager to come out of the closet, so eager to share. And we are really building a playful, enjoyable environment
Nice.
within the closet of science. So,
Oh, love it.
yeah,
Love it. So the big blue one was Sully.
Oh, you got children, then clearly.
Yeah, I've seen Monsters Inc. about a zillion times, and the little girl was Boo.
Oh, very good. So there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
Boo, boo to you.
yeah. So that's amazing. Justin, I wish you all the luck in the world. I have joined as a member. I'll be putting my application in to become a neuroplastician if I pass the grade, because I think you're right. I think this is a key part of coaching in the 21st century. You know, us coaches talk about change and behavior change and organizational change. And the fundamental aspect of that is change within people, which is changing their behaviors, which, as you
Mm,
rightly point out, is neuroplasticity. And we've got to be able to demonstrate that in the world of work and entrepreneurship so that people are put in charge of their own heads, because it's so liberating
mm,
and enables people to grow fantastic businesses, really, truly fantastic businesses. And I actually believe in this day and age will help us work better together, reduce division, create deeper understanding and more harmonious places to work, which can only be
mm.
a good thing.
And it all is about being an entrepreneur of the brain,
Yeah,
finding new ways to collaborate, finding
yeah,
new habits to build.
yeah.
So, entrepreneurs unite. We can win the
Yay.
fight.
Amazing. Thanks, Justin.
Thank you so much for the chat, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the NPN Hub so we can hang out and enjoy learning from you and also
Yeah,
collaborating with others, Rebecca. Thank you
I'm going
so
to learn a
much.
lot. Thank you.
The Entrepreneurial Journey podcast. We're talking business and building a culture that's kick-ass.